Hey, who'd you talk to? What's going on? It is me, Mike Lepre, King Mike L. This is Legit Paranormal, brought to you by LegitPodcast.com. I'm really popping those P's. It is January 15th, 2023. Sunday night. I already did it this morning. That's 1, 5, 7 on one side, 2, 3, 7 on the other side for the math geeks. Joining me as always, Buddy Money there. What's up, buddy?
Ooh, good evening, Mike. Oh my God. Oh, excuse me as I overpour my beer.
You're on mute. First off, you're on mute. You're on mute. Joey Paranormal. Joe, help me here. Joe, help me here. What is he doing? What just happened?
He just spilled beer all over the nice laptop I gave him. And I was hoping that he didn't just destroy the mic on it, because that would have been pretty funny. And also put me in a pretty bad spot for tonight, but I think we're good. I think he's back.
No, not yet.
Well, I mean, we can hear you, so that's good.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. I can't even see you guys yet.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't. At this point, it doesn't matter. Joe, can you hear me real time? Am I chopping up?
Yeah, your intro was a little stuttery, but now that we're picture in picture, you're looking better.
Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna back in. Buddy, you're gonna talk about your beer really quick. Then you.
Yeah, it is. I am going to talk about my beer. Usually, I do. First of all, I put in a captain's daughter glass. Thinking about you, brother Ray, and our loss today. My heart is broken, but you know, it was a nice season. But anyway, my beer this evening is I usually get a local craft beer from Rhode Island or a beer from where our guest is from. Our guest is tonight from North Dakota, I believe. So I don't really have a shot at getting a local craft deliciousness. But I did happen to have the intense pleasure of being in northern New Hampshire this weekend, where I went to and visited a lovely spot called Moat Mountain Brewery. Thanks to Joey Paranormal, who not only gave me a lovely laptop that I just spilled beer all over, but he recommended this lovely local smokehouse and brewery. They have a number of their own local beers on draft that they produce right there at the restaurant, and they have I had the brisket, Joe. It was
oh my god,
dude! It melted in my mouth.
Yep.
Oh,
do you have the chili?
Tremendous. This is this happens to be Call It a Day Double IPA. It's at 8.3% alcohol by volume. It's clear. Usually my beers are kind of hazy and dark, but this is kind of clear. And
I think I've had that on the show before, to be honest.
Oh, it's good. It's really
good. I get a 4-pack of those every time I go up there.
Yeah, dude. They got it on point.
Where did I leave off? Did you finish with the beer yet?
I just finished with the beer.
No, he's got to start. He hasn't started the beer yet.
I finished the beer. I just finished the beer.
Okay, do the introduction, buddy.
Oh my God. Okay, so joining us this evening, I believe from North Dakota. I hope I didn't mess that up. He is a 24 veteran of the U.S. Army. Thank you so much for your service, sir, and your sacrifice and your dedication. We appreciate it. He has since retired and become a local medium. Not local. I mean, he's probably all around the country. He's a medium. He's a healer. He's uses dowsing rods. Psychic joining us tonight live. The military medium, Dean McMurray. Welcome to the show, Dean.
Hey, buddy. Thanks a lot for the intro. That's what that IPA beer will do to you. Just kind of throw it. I'll throw you for a loop. I tell you what. And I got to say, King Mike, I thought I was logging on and I had to do a double take because I thought, what do they got? Negan coming in from Walking Dead. You kind of have the cast look. That's probably not the first time that you've heard that, huh?
No, I've actually heard that one before. But when I was a teenager, Dean, they used to call me. They said I looked like Robbie Benson. So
there you go.
I'm moving up in the world, I think. Rather be the bad guy from that show. And that's actually one of the better intros that Buddy has done. I mean, let's take into account that his
No, it
mind
was a good one. It was a good one. I love it. I
Totally
love
spilled my
it.
beer. That was totally
It was-
awful. But
Well, you spilled your beer, but we also know that you were crying in your beer a couple hours ago when the
I
Dolphins
was.
dropped to the Bills and a heartbreaker. So
That was a very heartbreaking game.
my
Mike. That was
apologies.
awful.
My
What?
apologies. My apologies. So Dean, thank you for joining us on the show. Was reading a lot about you. You're one of those people where there's so much stuff that it's like, well, I don't know, where would I want to? Where should I start with this one? So let me start with this. How many years again? Was it 24 years?
So ended up serving total of 24 years with the Army. 14 and a half of those were with the regular Army, and the last 10 was an active duty component with the Army National Guard here in the state of North Dakota. That's actually what brought me to the state, was the military. And, I'm sure we'll get into it, but, I was born and raised in northern Minnesota, right up on the Canadian border. And so that's kind of, the neck of the woods that I'm from. And that's why I kind of migrated back to this area, because I still have family in the area, I'll call it.
Dean, you don't like football, do you? Live up in northern Minnesota?
So a lot of folks up here are Vikings fans, kind of back and forth between Viking and Packers and all that great stuff. And, even to Vikings fans, and I know a lot of former Vikings and everything and everything else. But it was kind of interesting because just a lot of diehard fans, even through just so many terrible years. And finally, they're starting, I don't know what's going on, but they're finally starting to do a turnaround. But so yeah, I follow it when I can. But today wasn't one of those days. It was kind of busy. I've been out of the office for a week, so I was on holiday, so as they say.
That works.
Yeah.
But when you think about North Dakota, it's just no offense to North Dakota. It's
No.
not a place I think of moving to. It just you always think of moving someplace warmer or someplace that's going to be like this, and no one says, let's move to North Dakota.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the thing, and it's at the end of the day, it's either you're from this area. There are transplants that come to North Dakota. I mean, great people. I think when they get back to it, it's the people. But during the winter, I think the older that I get, the more like the southern states are looking really attractive. As arthritis and everything becomes more of an issue, it's like, those 30, 40 below days, that goes on weeks at a stretch, or, hey, here's another snowstorm that's back to back to back. And it's like, you know what? This is, as a kid, you have no responsibilities. So growing up in that, it's like, woohoo, another snow day, right? And but as an adult, it's, hey, can I drive today because are the roads closed, or can I get out in it, and or whatever the case is.
We deal with that in New England. It's just
Sure.
With you guys, it always seems like it's more constant cold, whereas with us, it'd be 80 degrees on a Thursday, and on a Friday it's 40 below.
Right.
You know what I mean? Joey's wearing his triple fat goose. So now, when did the whole medium? Because here's a question: like,
Yeah.
does somebody want to be a medium, and then they discover they're a medium, or do people discover they're mediums before they even want to? You know what I'm trying to say to you? Like, is it a
Yeah, I get what you're throwing out there, and I don't want to answer that by saying yes or no, because I think it's different, Mike, for everybody. So, the thing is that, like, for me, for example, and I can only speak for my personal experience, and I wasn't looking to be a medium. I wasn't, I didn't travel in those circles. I knew that there was something bigger than us. I was raised in a traditional, Christian household. You go to church on Sunday, you go to Sunday school, the whole 9 yards. But I just, as I became an adult and as I served time in the military, and not that the military had anything to do with it, but it was, it wasn't something that I was aware of, nor was I interested in. And after I got married, I didn't even know that my wife was, quite honestly, interested in paranormal or metaphysical, I'll say. But her and a lot of girlfriends, I guess, used to go and, go get readings and have girls' nights and whatever. And but it wasn't until, the whole question, because everybody asks, like, well, if you didn't always know that you're a medium, like, when did it start? And, it really started, the whole 9 yards started for me when I returned from my last deployment. And, my daughter was about 5, and I deployed for a year in the lovely country of Kosovo. And when I came back, our son was born, and it was like holy hell broke loose. It was like, a scene out of Poltergeist, right? Because clocks and pictures, quite honestly, were flying off the wall. And I was like, what the F is going on? Like, and I was looking at because for me at the time, I was the atypical guy, meaning if I can't shoot it, eat it, hump it, drive it, whatever, or drink it, it doesn't exist in my world. So I needed something very visceral. So when you get something, for me, that was, like this paranormal experience, I was like, what the F is going on? Because I knew when the clocks were coming out, or clocks and pictures coming off the wall, what's the first thing you do? You got to debunk it, right?
Yeah.
And the nail wasn't in the stud. Oh, there was no sheetrock anchor or whatever. And 9 times out of 10, there was no reason why things were coming off the way they did. And I was
Dean,
like, holy, yeah.
Dean, maybe I missed it.
Yeah.
But you casually just blowed into like clocks and pictures flying off the wall.
Sure.
I don't remember you telling us, now the camera's messing with me, where you were, how it happened. You just kind of went from, and then there was clocks and me. We're not used to that.
So
let's rewind.
Yeah. So
what was going on?
So, I guess to answer your question, Mike, is when the whole thing kicked off, like I said, I had just returned from deployment, and again, clocks and pictures. That was the event that started everying.
Where were you when this happened?
My home. It was at home. It was in our home. And it was, living room, whatever. Room is, doesn't matter, but yeah, it was in my home. And
were you alone?
Nope, I was with my family. My whole family was there. And it was, and I was like, I'm looking at my wife going, what the F is going on? And I knew that by this time that she had been seeing this local psychic. And I was jokingly referring to the psychic as a voodoo chick. And because that was my verbiage for her at the time. And I said, you need to get on the phone and get that voodoo chick over here, because she needs to do whatever they do to get rid of this stuff, because I knew it wasn't something physical. It wasn't something that I could, deal with in a physical manner.
All right.
And I was like, what's that?
I'm sorry. This is what I do. You said stuff.
Yeah.
Now stuff. That's another. You're trying to gloss that past us too. You get a feeling he's pretty good at talking to like people brokering deals. You notice how he kind of like went past the throwing the clocks and things. He just glossed over the fact that like stuff is stuff. What's stuff?
Sure.
What do you mean by stuff?
Well, so in the sense of, it's just my verbiage for, we talked about things coming off the wall, clocks and pictures that I summarize it with. And then the other aspect, because it's a little bit further in when I say stuff, meaning the events that I was going to get to a little bit further into my timeline about when my deceased grandmother started showing up. And I knew that somebody needed to deal with it. I thought that somebody could come over and, I jokingly I actually said, do you just wave your magic wand and it all goes away? I just want this shit gone. And that wasn't the case. And so when she came over, she started connecting to my deceased grandfather. And what she gave me evidential information about him, but I wasn't in the brain space at that point in time to receive that message, if that makes sense. And yeah, I didn't want to hear it, and I just wanted all this stuff to stop. And quite honestly, I completely missed the premise of the messages that she was delivering from my grandfather. And, and I just kept on thinking about, I just want all this stuff to stop. And again, I used the word stuff, but talking about paranormal activity in the home. And,
so was
and there,
one
I guess,
spirit bringing in another spirit?
No, I don't believe that. This is what I believe. I believe that the activity was not only my grandmother, but the aspect of the spiritual realm or spirit realm trying to get my attention. Now, I never did get clarity, like who's knocking off the clocks and pictures, like who's giving me the sense, like sometimes you get whiffs of, of perfume and different things. But the thing that I couldn't, or that I clearly got is what she was connecting to my grandfather, and I wasn't having any of it. I wasn't listening. And then not too long after she was there, my deceased grandmother showed up, for me. And it was like, hey, Dean, get your shit together, basically. It was a come to Jesus moment, I call it. And and I'll get into that here in a second. But it was kind of like an escalation of force, we'll call it, right? So, spirit realm trying to get my attention, like, hey, you need to, step into your abilities, pay attention, this stuff's going on. And I was, like, hey, I just want it gone. And then,
buddy,
I got a question for you.
Yeah, your mic's loud, buddy. Your mic's hot, buddy. Your mic's like, it's like, God, it's hot. It's like mercury or whatever planet is hot, buddy. It's hot, meaning you're like loud. But go ahead.
It is the dog upstairs playing with the phone.
Better know.
On the hardwood floor. So while you were experiencing all this paranormal phenomena in your home, Dean, were other people experiencing it too, or was it just you?
No, it was just me at the time. It wasn't until later that I tried to ignore everything after my grandmother came to pay me a visit. That when I was trying to ignore everything, spirit started showing up for my daughter, who will turn 17 in March. And so she was just a little peanut at the time. And, and the thing is, you ever want to hear anything creepier than shit? And especially as a dad, have your 5-year-old daughter roll into your bedroom at like 2-3 o'clock in the morning and go, Daddy, there's a man in my room.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't like send all the bells and whistles off as not only a dad, and then you run into the bedroom thinking, who the hell's in my daughter's bedroom? And then you're not physically seeing anybody. So it wasn't, to answer your question, buddy, it wasn't until later on that it started affecting not only my daughter but my son. And my son was just a newborn and he wasn't sleeping well, and that's when my wife actually looked at me and went, you need to figure this shit out, because guess what, when the kids aren't sleeping, who isn't sleeping? Mama. And she was like, I'm not getting any sleep, like you need to figure. And I was like, who do I turn to? And I went back to the only one that I knew at the time, was that local psychic, who I was referring to as the voodoo chick. She doesn't do voodoo, by the way. But so I went back to her and she said, quite honestly, Dean, you're a medium. And I was like, you're full of shit. I don't, and she said, you know what? I probably am. However, that doesn't change the fact of what you are. And I was like, well, what does that even mean? Like, what does that mean for me personally? And so I kind of went on a self-discovery journey of, she suggested I read a book, and it confused me even more because I was resisting. And you got to remember, guys, like I'm still working very much full-time for the military. So Monday through Friday, 1 weekend a month, the whole National Guard deal. And then but then in the evenings or weekends, whatever, my personal time, if I wasn't dad or the husband role, like I was doing mediumship. And so I was living, in a sense, these two lives. And I always like to joke and say, you know, I was Dean the soldier by day and Dean the medium by night. And, but in a sense, that's how it was going, because I was keeping it a hush hush, top secret kind of thing that was going on behind the scenes. And I was really careful of who I was discussing it with, because I knew I was in my last 3 years of military service, and I didn't want to be the quote unquote that guy that's going off the deep end. Dean's going off the deep end.
But Dean, on the topic of being careful,
yeah,
your ability as a medium, allowed in ghosts or spirits or whatnot to contact your kids.
So they were showing up initially. Not only my grandmother and other deceased loved ones, my wife's family and stuff, but also just willy-nilly. There was really no boundaries at that time, and that was the big thing I want to reiterate. There was no boundaries. It was like the Wild West days.
So it wasn't your veil that was allowing them in. It was just what was going on in the house.
Yeah, well, both. It was kind of, because it was the experience that we were supposed to have, and it was meant for me to connect to that, but I wasn't in the brain space of going. I was trying to go plug your ears and go, it doesn't exist, and saying, oh, you get your shit together, because it's not going away. And guess what? Your daughter's very gifted. So if you don't talk to them, guess who they're going to go to next to talk to somebody. And so that's where I really had to set, number one, boundaries with those in spirit. And then number two, I actually had to set a date and a time. I did it every week in the beginning because I didn't really understand how things work. And I was like, you know what, I think it was Monday night. Every Monday night at 8:00, I'm going to sit and I sat with the notebook and, journaled information, and I opened it up to whomever deceased, that is deceased, that come forward and share your message with me. And so that's what I did in the beginning. And then I learned more how to control the connection to the spiritual realm, and also setting healthy boundaries with those in spirit. If that makes sense.
All right, Joe.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Joe?
So I was just going to ask you, kind of touched on it a little bit, that you didn't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
And I know it definitely how certain members, now, can I guess, were you enlisted or non-commissioned? Or commissioned or non-commissioned, rather?
I was non-commissioned.
Okay. So, yeah, I know how in certain aspects someone may, possibly give you that, like, oh, he's off the deep end. But was there ever a time before you retired where you did kind of mesh those two worlds? Or did anyone ever want to talk to you about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was kind of funny because, anybody in the military will tell you, because at this point, I just paint a little picture for you guys. So at this point, I was at E7, had earned the respect of my peers and my superiors and everybody else. I had a lot of great working relationships and personal and professional relationships with a lot of folks that I work with and everything. And I didn't want to ruin that. And in my head, and I got to reiterate that, in my mind, that if I came out as Dean the Medium, that would just totally burn that bridge. And so it actually came down to which is kind of funny. I kind of outed myself as far as to the people that I directly supervised. There was about 5 total that I directly supervised. And we would have the water cooler talks, right? And, some people that I found were very interested in what was going on. Other people would be like, I'm going to pray for you, man. And then other people would turn around and walk away. They couldn't go there. And that's okay. And that's when I finally came out of the quote unquote metaphysical closet, so to speak, in front of basically my whole unit at it was like a summer picnic type deal for the unit. And everybody, Yeah, the mandatory fund, right? And it was everybody asked when everybody retires, like, what are you going to do? Like, you're going to open up a surplus shop. You're going to, and everybody jokes about it, but they were legitimately really curious. And finally, I had become the grumpy old guy. And I was like, screw it. What are they going to do? Bend my dog tags and make me retire? Like, I'm out the door in so many months. And I finally said, you know what? I said, I'm a medium. Like, I'm a psychic medium. I can talk to dead people. And, I got a big, like, somebody hit me on the shoulder and goes, no shit. Like, like I knew it, like I knew something, like, and I found that there was another person within the unit that did energy work. And, but it was interesting because, again, there was people that walked away. There was other people that were immense. Most people were really interested, like, how, like, holy crap, like, how did you, like, where did you find a shirt that said I'm a psychic, or and they were legitimately curious. And
it's time and place though, Dean. Like, if you roll up on me at Stop and Shop and you're like, hey, then you start giving me the story, I don't want to hear it. I'll walk away. If you say to me, this is what we're going to talk about, then I'd be like, all right. But I think if I was at the water cooler getting my coffee during work, and Joe knows this because we always bump into each other at HR, we get into a lot of trouble on this show. I don't talk during the day. I like to get my coffee and just do my thing. And I think if someone gave me an elaborate story that was that intense, I don't know if I could deal with it at work. Does that make any sense to you two guys? Like, at work, I don't know if I could handle that. Out of work, I'll listen to a story or two. Joe?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like if you're on the range and you're about to go up and try to qualify, and someone was like, "Hey, like, I'm a psychic medium, by the way. Your father says you're going to do great." It might be a little off-putting, but if you're on AT and you're sitting in you're in the field and you're in a tent and you're just kind of having a couple drinks and sharing stories, and so it's definitely time and place, and it depends on who the audience is and their willingness to kind of accept that.
Right. Well, and that was the thing. I've never been one that goes, has ever been, that guy to go to try to, I don't want to say one up somebody, but goes, oh, guess what I'm doing now? I'm a psychic medium, like, who gives a shit? It's like, really, but at the same time, it's like, so we would get into conversation to give you a little background, and, it'd be like, dude, you're not going to believe, but I had some like supernatural shit going. And so we would talk about the pictures and stuff. And then so other people would share, and then somebody would bring up the aspect, because I kept the aspect about me being a medium, like, that was top secret files. But if they approached into and facilitated a conversation that brought that information out, saying, have you ever had that experience, or have you ever been and then it'd be like, well, I don't, it's like, I'm actually like, and so kind of easing into it, because at that time I never knew how people would take it. And exactly like you said, Joey, is that, there's a time and place for it. You're not on the demo range and be like, all right, grab your C4 deck cord, and oh, by the way, grandma says hi, and then move out. It's like, no, take out the bunker and, there's a dead guy to your left. No, it's, so it, it wasn't that. And, honestly, it's learning to even put things in perspective, because I drew a very hard line when it came. I don't even know how I did it, to be quite honest with you, but I was able to, in a sense, I don't want to say shut off, because I don't believe we can shut the ability off, but I was able to set such a big boundary with those in spirit when it first all started. When I would get to work, that was it. Like, I was Dean the soldier. Like, you dealt with me, you dealt military stuff, whatever. Nothing was brought up other than occasional conversation about, the haunted, clocks and pictures coming off the wall, with a couple of the guys around the water cooler. However, anything outside of that was a no-go. And then, so I was very careful in that aspect. But, when I got closer to retirement, I didn't give a shit. And, and at that picnic, quite honestly, we were having beers, and we were sitting, have a good time, and everybody was asking, and they had been asking for quite some time. And I was so vague with what I was going to do. I'm going to do consulting. I'm going to do energy work. I was going to do, and they're like, I think he's working for an energy company or stocks. I don't know. I mean, their minds were melting, and finally, when I said at that picnic, when I said, screw it. Actually, I'm a psychic medium. And they were like, no shit. And, and then some people got up and they walked away and they never talked about it. And I never, and you see that. And I was like, I'm not going to stand in my soapbox and say, you must believe in the afterlife. No, because I didn't, I did, like in a God sense of, there's life after death. But as far as mediums and psychics, and I had to have my own experience. And so I recognize that for others and like, that's all right. Wherever you are, that's okay with me. Hey, that's cool. I'm not going to sit here and proclaim myself in front of you. So just, talk about my own personal experience. And if somebody else can relate, cool. So, but yeah, it was kind of an interesting moment when you come out of the closet, so to speak. And it's just like other people like, no shit. Like, so how is that? How does that, so then you get the million questions. And it's kind of funny too, because even some of the soldiers that walked away during that conversation, it was years after I retired, and I'd get in fact, this is a conversation I had. I got a text from a former supervisor, and he goes, yo, Dean, you still talking to ghosts? And I was like thinking, all right, smart ass. And I was like, yeah, in fact, I am. And I was, and he was like, well, I got a guy. And it's always, hey, they'll come to you in the back alley, right? Like, hey, you still doing that crazy shit? Like, I got some weird shit going on. So you're not too weird anymore when they start having some crazy shit go on. Now they go to the person that they remember, that it's like, okay, yeah, I remember Dean was doing that shit. Let me call him up, or let me give him a text. And so it's kind of funny that some of those soldiers kind of come back around full circle. And it's like, yeah, we can talk. We can have a conversation. What's going on? So yeah.
All right. So Dean, so throughout the medium experience,
yeah,
if someone was like, so Dean, like, God forbid, you only got like a half hour left in life. What two things do you want to tell us? Like, in other words, what are two memories? They don't even have to be like monumental memories to everybody, but to you, like, what 2 or 3 memories are just like, you have to like pin them because they're
as a medium.
Yeah.
So the memories that as a medium, if I had, like a half hour to live or whatever, one that really still resides with me, and I share this story quite often, was the story of an older woman contacted me to do a reading for her family and for her husband. And her husband was a veteran, and he was in a hospice unit here in the local area. And basically the premise is that she wanted to get him a reading to give him some validation that his loved ones were on the other side waiting for him when it was his time to cross, that it was, going to be okay. And it was something that I'll never forget, because he was nonverbal, but yet you clearly express it through his eyes. He could blink, he could cry. And the whole family was there in the unit. And I was like, oh my God, like, no pressure, right? Because you wanted, not only was he a career Army guy, but also like, you just in this sacred moment. And so I just connected and ended up connecting to his mother and some other folks on the other side for him. And it was, and you could see the release and connection and tears. And of course, the wife was giving verbal validation. Oh my God, yes. And everything else. And it was something that still touches me really deeply. And I guess if there came down to, so that was one big moment that I'll never forget. And there's so many others, but if there was a message, and I know this sounds so repetitive because so many people use it, but truly it can't be overstated, is truly that love never dies. And that's something that stays with me. And even as my dad was dying, and when he died, that I knew, even though as being a medium, it was still emotionally hard for me and my family, that, I knew that dad was going to a better place. And I knew that love never died with him. And, right away, immediately, did I get signs from, dad on the other? Yep. Immediately. Boom. And I was like, all right, I gotcha. Like, we're connected, kind of doing, I call it the radio check. Right. So, checking in on the other side.
I agree with that 100%. With with my parents, I'm not a huge paranormal person myself, but I do know that they are somewhere, because I know that they've tried to reach out to me. But my thing is, people say well, that they're in heaven, or there's someplace better or whatever, and they still love you, and everything's all right.
Yeah,
it's not all right. I miss the companionship. I'm selfish. I'm a selfish prick. I miss being around them, hearing what they had to say to me. I miss I know they still love me, and they're still up there, still trying to help me. You know what I mean? They are, but I miss them. I think that's the hardest part to get over. Yeah. It's the mundane conversations. It's having my mom call me and be like, Mike, you need to go pick up gummy bears. Don't give me the ones that look like other animals, the different flavors. And I'm sitting there at 40-something years old going, I got to leave where I'm at to go get I got to get exact gummy bears. She's going to, I missed that. As much as I was busting my balls, that was a lot of fun. I missed that.
Right. No. And I think there's a lot of people, and I think most of us are right there with you, Mike, is that, we miss that connection. There's nothing that, even though we're able to connect, we're able to get validation, we can get but at the same, it's not the same, and it is not the same. And, and it's, it sucks, but, and it's hoping, the aspect with mediumship is not to fix everything, because we can't.
No,
but it is to hopefully give some healing and one last connection for somebody, or to get validation, to be seen. How many people have I had over the years of, I'm still trying to make my parents proud of me, or, or are they, do they approve of my life choices in life, or they're trying to get validation in some point. And I think at a deeper level, Mike, is we want to be seen, and whether by our parents, and we want that physical connection, to give them a hug, or, whatever. Well, so I completely agree with you.
So Buddy and Joe, you can drink now. I had an Italian mom. So growing up with an Italian mom, you missed that whole conversation connection. In other words, she was my number one fan, and I was her number one fan, if that makes any sense. I could do no wrong. I mean, I could come in the house, Mom, I ended up whacking 2 guys on the way home. Where am I going to bury the bodies? My mom would be like, calm down. Go get the lime out of the shed. You know what I mean? She would just roll with me. Not that happened, allegedly. I'm just saying, how it would go with my mom.
Right.
And so it's I could do no wrong with her. So it's that was the greatest. And I would do videos to make her laugh. The truth behind, I got about 80 puppet videos, which is another story for another time, Dean. But I made all these puppet videos for my mom, because they used to make her laugh, because she liked foul-mouthed Italian puppets. I don't know, so be it. I digress, but that's what I did for my mom. Now, Joe, you don't have anybody ever reach out to you? You never talk about anybody in your family ever trying to reach out to you, or having that feeling?
What do you mean?
I never heard you talk about on any of our shows that you think someone reaches out to you or spoken to you from beyond. You don't bring it up. I always hear me and Buddy both have our stories, but I've never heard from you about it.
Yeah, I mean, and not to, I've lost my fair share of family members, but I have a very thick veil. I don't I obviously believe in a lot of this, but I try not to let as much come through because realistically I'm kind of like you where like I really don't want that constant like when I go on an investigation, yes, I want to experience something, but once that's done, that's it for me. I'm good. I don't want to flip the light on in my bedroom and see that instant flash of my father like standing in a doorway or hear the whisper of my name that sounds like my aunt or something. You know what I mean? So I've had it I've sat down with the medium at one point and she, it was on my father's birthday and she was like, I have no message for you. I have nothing for you. Um, your father's not coming through. I don't know if you needed that, but yeah, I've never kind of had anyone come across and I'm kind of hoping I don't, to be honest.
See, that's how I was, Dean. I didn't want anyone to come across, but then, because I'm to be honest, I've been very terrified of it because I feel like from doing all these shows that once you peel it back a little bit, it just floods through. And that's my biggest fear, right, Joe? I don't know if I speak for you, but I know I speak for the dumb. If I let a little bit, I'm afraid I'm going to let all positive and negative stuff come flooding through.
Congratulations, by the way, Mike.
Yes. Thank you so much. After the show is over, I plan to probably take my shirt off, run around the neighborhood with a bottle of champagne that I have for this occasion that I've saved now for 5 years. So yeah, thank you. Dean, that's just because the Giants are about to beat the Minnesota Vikings in the playoffs.
Okay.
I want to bring that up to you because you mentioned before.
You can think of me as they win, so it's like, oh,
but thank you, Joe. So Joe, Dean, in a case like Joe's, when he comes in, a guy like Joe comes in to see you, right? He's got Joe's attitude. He's not being very polite like Joe would be. He's not
all right.
All right. Am I painting the picture? So he's not open. Is what I'm basically trying to say.
Sure. Yeah.
What do you do with a guy like that? Like you can't. What can you do?
So sometimes it's really up to the reader, right? So it's up to the medium, the person that is kind of your bedside manner. But there's been people before that if somebody is not open, I've just right in their face going, "Why are you here? Why are you paying me money if you're not open?"
Yep.
And so if you don't want to hear what I have to say, why are you here? And so what are you looking? And sometimes it's honestly with you, Mike, sometimes it's not about the reading. It could be something different. And then all of a sudden you put on not that I'm a psychologist or anything or a counselor, but sometimes it could be something different. And it's like, they're just looking for something. They're, hurting or whatever. And so it could be something outside of the reading. And so, but sometimes I'll just ask them point blank, why are you here? And there's been times even in the past that before they even open their mouth, like Spirit will tell me, like, you need to like throw it in their face because like even very, like if they come to maybe one of my events and they're quote unquote in their closet, I'll call them out going, why are you here? You can do this. Why'd you come thanks for buying a ticket, by the way, but why'd you come? And it's like, is it to, and maybe it's to get them kind of that, hey, they need somebody to throw it in their face, like back at you. Like you need that mirror, somebody to mirror it back to you going, why are you here? Like what, why are you, so, number one, that's what I've done in the past, like, and do it, like you can do it respectfully. I don't get, of course we're Midwest nice here, it's like, everybody's like, oh yeah, sure. You bet, they're Janice, sit down and have the walleye. Don't you know?
You're drinking syrup.
But no, it's, but what I'm saying is that you can say, honestly, why are you here? It's, what are you looking for? Because obviously if somebody is closed in their mind and they're not open to that, go back to my story. I completely missed what my grandpa was sharing. And those nuggets of wisdom later on, I did go back to a different psychic and a different medium and in my journeys and got another message from him. But so it was kind of like relaying again, basically the same thing. And but it was like, so yeah, we can, miss some great things but you have to be in that mind space, because a lot of people say like, oh, I don't, and I completely understand where you're coming from with that, Mike, is talking about you weren't, you were feeling like you didn't want to pull that curtain back or open that door, because then everything was going to flood. And it's like, how do I hold all that back? Like, I don't want to deal with all the negative stuff. And
I got too much stuff in my life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So, and that's okay. Hey, that's all right. And trusting the timing of things. So, and I always say, if it's, if not right now, then I trust that down the road, perhaps, then it will. But I always just trust. And that's you give it up to the divine timing of it, saying that's okay, wherever you are. And
do you deal with, I'm sorry, do you deal with hypnotizing? What's the word I'm looking for when it's a past tense that I can't?
Hypnosis.
There it is. God damn it. You know what? That word, I was like, where do I go with this? You ever start a word and end up going, where am I going with this word?
Right.
What's the ending? What's the correct ending? I couldn't figure it out. I'm sorry, Dean. But yeah, have you ever worked with?
That's all right. That's that. Yeah. So have I ever done hypnosis? Is that your question? I have. Yes. I did it just to experience it. There was a guy I met here in a local area that was doing it for a while. And I thought, that'd be kind of fun. He offered me a free session, and I was like, yeah, maybe, if it helps, like unlock something or whatever. I don't know. I don't know what to expect. Just don't make me. What's that?
Were you worried?
Like, no, I wasn't worried. No, I felt I read into his energy before I even did it, because if I felt anything off, or if he felt weird to me, I wouldn't have done it.
Because when we were like in our 20s, or I was in my 20s, the big guy around here was this hypnotist, the R-rated hypnotist. Now, basically, what he would do is get these, like, I guess they're supposed to be 21 years old. Let's say 18 to like 25-year-olds to like come up on stage and take their pants down and go in the bathroom and come out as Batman. And you remember? Anybody remember these shows? They were just the most ridiculous, stupid stuff. It spoiled
Frank Santos.
Yes, can't say I do.
He spoiled the whole Northeast in the sense of like, I would never go get hypnotized after that. I'm like, so wait a minute now. I'm giving in this guy, and he's gonna put me asleep, and he's gonna make me do all this foolish shit. Ain't happening. Right. So since then, it's been like, I worry about people that can do it. I'm worried that you might be hypnotizing us right now, Dean. I might show up at buddy's house and buddy's bell, and buddy's gonna be like, "What are you doing here?" I'm like, "Slap, slap, 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 slap." And I get back in my car and drive home, and he's like, "Mike, what are you doing that for?" Like, don't remember.
I don't know. See, maybe you just focus on the pendulum.
Anyway, no. So, could you hypnotize Joey and Buddy to be a little bit better on the show?
I am not a hypnotist. I don't do any hypnotizing. And and I think with that, Mike, is when it comes to that stuff, is know who you're going to. So if you go to in the aspect of the X-rated or the R-rated hypnotist, that should kind of tell you where you're going. Like there's something, but it's like, so I don't go to a bar and expect to have a Chuck E. Cheese moment. So it's kind of like, so, but I guess when there has to be a level of trust too. Like if you go to an actual reputable practitioner of hypnosis in a clinical setting, in a sense, could they do some shady shit? Sure, they could. There's physical therapists that do it. There's priests that do it. There's plumbers that do it. There's
massage
everybody.
therapists that are over 75 in a strip mall that got a little too handsy. Yeah, they do that. So
Bob Kraft.
No. We're from the Northeast. And I'm, again, guys drink fully Italian. So we're skeptical of everyone. Because in the Northeast, we're a bunch of shady states. Shady people from shady states. They really are. The Europeans up Northeast, we're shady people. Like they can't trust them. Like think about it. You think Philly, you think New York, you think of Boston, Providence. I don't trust any of them. I don't. But you go out to North Dakota, it gets friendlier. I've traveled west. I've been even down to Virginia. It's so much friendlier down in
Oh,
Virginia.
yeah, down south.
They all got guns on them, and they want to tell you how great Trump is all the time. But it's friendlier. Do you know what I mean? So it's like here, you can't even pull out. They won't let you pull out into the. You cannot pull out onto a main road here, Dean. They won't let you go. They speed up so you can't go. Joe, do they not speed up and gun it so someone can't get out?
Oh, the best is when you just want to take an exit. You're in the second lane, and you put your blinker on. You're like, just let me get into this inside shoulder, and they speed right up. It's like, thanks, man, thanks, appreciate it.
That Dean, that's the Northeast. I'm being dead honest. Horrible people.
Literally happened to me on Thursday.
Yeah.
Oh, the Rhode Island turn where they pull out and they block the entire traffic until they're able to turn.
Oh,
I can't stand that. Though.
I know we're getting off rail, but 1 second. So, buddy, on that topic, I know the law with that. You can't pull out, block a lane, and as if you're waiting.
That happens all the time in Rhode Island.
All right. Take me back about a year ago. Coming down the street, driving a car that I was going to go take to get fixed because the car was a piece of dung. This girl shoots out in front of me. I go to hit the brakes because I'm going to slow down. And for some reason, as I hit the brakes, I just don't slam them to the ground. I just kind of go skid, smash. T-boned her. I wasn't at fault. She pulled out in front of me. I'm being dead serious. Was I happy about it? Yeah. Do I feel good about being happy about it? No. So that's why I'm nuanced. Like, did I do something wrong? Yes. And was it a good feeling? Well, kind of. But did I feel good about myself afterwards? No.
Yeah.
That's the lesson of the day. Dean, so I'm sorry. So
no, you're all right.
We like to just discuss things, and sometimes Buddy gets us off track. So I apologize.
Yeah, right.
I apologize to Buddy. So now, all right. What about like recently scary things as far as people I've been talking to in the paranormal as of late, Dean? People are from all different places. There's a big thing about there's two questions. One is, are there really serpents living under the ground? And I don't say that meaning in a joking way. And two, the effects of Agent Orange and how it was tested and what I've been learning about it. Did that not fascinate you at the time? And did you ever look into it? Because there's people that they just don't show up, that they have proof that they were they don't even have proof that they were there, if you know what I'm trying to say. Like, they've gone through the whole experience, but they can't prove that they were part of this group that doesn't exist. And there's been document cases of that. Like, so that's a weird that was the reason I bring that up, is because a lot of those people experience really weird psychosis or thought they were talking to the other side. Now, I guess we could leave it to the fact that it was an experimental thing that really no one knew what was going to do to people. But some people swear it's like, I think the term was like the devil's dust, like the after effect of it. Joe, I mean, have you heard anything about that as far as like the mental effect of it?
You have totally gone off on a Buddy tangent right now, and I am like way out in left field. You got to reel it back in because I'm a little lost.
Right. Buddy, have you heard about the Agent Orange thing that they've been talking about?
I even listened to you, Mike, unlike Joe, and I don't know if I agree with you here on this. The whole that Agent Orange was like Vietnam War.
Yeah, no, before that, no. It dates back to 19. They started making it. Oh Christ!
Korea?
I'm going to bring this up. No, it was in like the late 40s. They started working on the idea for it.
Post World War II,
it was like, it was like what they did to people with it was like it's really bad. But what I'm trying to say is what the crossover to that was like. Once again, they thought they hit like the paranormal side, the spirit side. They kind of like with the whole when they claim the Germans hit something by doing their experiments, like.
Oh, the sleep deprivation.
Yeah, there's just been a couple of things that have come out that have seemed like they like are they touching the other side, or is that just, you think, purely psychosis from the?
Ooh, finally got there.
Well, if you didn't shut up, if you just listened to the thing, you would have helped me out. But you weren't even listening.
I was listening. That's the problem.
Let's go up to Dean and drop you guys out. I'm sorry, Dean. Guys, HR Tuesday, 11:30. Please. Go ahead. No.
You know, I guess I get back to your question, Mike. You know, I haven't done any research on Agent Orange, like, you know, and I'm, of course, kid of the 70s and everything. And I had a lot of friends, of course, you know, the effects of Agent Orange are generational, right? So I have a lot of classmates and folks that actually suffered with effects from, you know, their dads or whomever were in Vietnam, and, you know, and then they were born with like bad skin issues or whatever was going on. That was a direct result of that. So there was a lot of get the physical things. I wasn't aware of the other stuff, but it doesn't surprise me. It really doesn't, because it's no secret that the government has not only been experimenting on, you know, special select groups of either soldiers, prisoners, the populace, the mass populace, whether or not they're aware or not, and also the you know, like how to connect to a paranormal or metaphysical aspect of, can they travel into another world through whether LSD or taking Agent Orange? And I haven't heard of that study, but I guess my personal belief in it is I'm not going to discount it, because for me personally, you know, number one, I don't know enough about it, but number two is that there might be something to it. But I know that it, you know, obviously can mess with your mind or whatever, but who's to say, here's a guy that can talk to dead people. Who's to say that they can't do it? You know what I'm saying? So we can do a lot of things from our state of consciousness by raising our vibration. We can do remote viewing. We can do astral travel right from right here, like me sitting right here.
That's what
so
got me.
Yeah.
That's what got
So
me
why
hooked
not?
with astral travel.
So why couldn't they? It's actually a very interesting question, and it you know, it's like, that's really fascinating, like the different things. And you brought up the Germans, or specifically not but the Nazi Party, of how they did extensive study in how to access and maintain higher states of consciousness, how to try to, I forget what the study was, where they did all these experimental, not only weapons, super weapons programs, but also, you know, all kinds of stuff. So yeah, totally.
Yeah. The Nazis. Now the Nazis, buddy, I got to tell you this. I've done more research, and the more I learn about them, I got to be frank with you. They were really jerks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, buddy? Jerks.
They were definitely jerks, Mike.
Yeah.
They did all
Putting it mildly.
on
I couldn't even say it with a
yes.
straight face. I'm so sorry. I mean, of course they're horrible. I mean, I know there was just, I read it. Look, he had to be on some sort of speed. The clankety clank clank guy. He had to be on some sort of speed. No one gives speeches like that. If someone gave a speech like that to you right now, you wouldn't listen to it. It's too much. Clankety clankety clank clank clank. The whole thing's evil. All right. Again. So then, Dean, as I reel myself back in, how has being in the military, though, helped you deal with being in the paranormal world now? Is it just the organizational skills, the compartmentalization?
I think D, all the above. You know, it's, you know, I think for anybody, regardless whether you have a military background or whatever it is, Mike, is that you go back onto your experience. And for me, obviously the military, but all the skills that you build in the military, and especially over the years of not only my military knowledge of the organizational, like, you know, how the military is organized, and different, you know, uniforms and different such that way, but also like self-preservation and resilience and all these I don't know if you want to call them soft skills, whatever, but all these additional skills that kind of come with it that you build over time in the military, you know, attention to detail, the discipline of, because when maybe I do a reading, it's going to be a little bit different than when somebody that wasn't in the military gives a reading. It doesn't mean that the medium that wasn't in the military can't give an accurate reading and, you know, it describe, you know, if somebody was to show a machine gun, they may say a machine gun, but they might not, you know, I would look at it and go, oh, that's a M2 Browning, you know, 50 caliber machine gun, you know, right away, I might know what it is. Or, you know, so I might give nomenclature with it, but there's things that predate my experience. And for one, I'll give you an example. I was doing a really large gallery at Shooting Star Casino here in Minnesota, and it was actually for a paranormal convention. And one of the things, I was really nervous. It was my first huge gallery. There was 500 plus people in attendance, and I was like, all right, Spirit, you gotta give me something, like throw me a freaking bone here. And because I always like to start with the gallery of like, hey, show me something, or somebody step forward, something unique and funny or very odd. And so I started getting things. And one of the things that I wrote down was Hiroshima, Nagasaki. And I heard it clearly. And we know that is the two Japanese cities that they dropped the atomic bombs on, right? Mm-hmm. And so I was like, wow. And then I also heard the Enola Gray, Enola Gray, right?
Gay.
Or Gay. Yeah, there you go, Enola Gay. And I was like, what is going on with this? And I heard very clearly, I heard a male's voice, and he goes, I was connected to the air crew with that mission. And I was like, holy shit, like that's history. Like that's something to write down. And I was like, well, either I'm going to look like the biggest fool, or this is just going to be so awesome. And so I started off and, you know, connecting to spirits. And so I said, who here can connect, you know, recognize and validate this gentleman? And I described him, and I said, he was part of, you know, the Army Air Corps, and talking about, World War II and all this. And I said, and then I gave the information about, you know, the Enola Gay and all this. And this lady rose her hand and she stood up and she goes, that gentleman is here for my daughter. And so she gave the story about how her daughter works at a nursing home, and she became very close with a elderly gentleman, obviously. But he was the officer in charge for selecting the air crew that went on those missions.
Wow.
And he still lived with the guilt up until the day he died about knowing that, because they thought that their crews were just going to vaporize. They didn't know what was going to happen. And so he lived with a lot of guilt and everything. And there was a lot of challenges. But they were super close, almost like a granddaughter-daughter type relationship. And she was supposed to be there that night. And he came through with just the most beautiful message for her. But I was like, that shit you can't make up. Like, you know, talking about the military connection. So sometimes they'll come forward, like other times, like, you know, bring it more modern day and talk about Operation Enduring Freedom or Iraqi freedom, and talk about, or regardless, and, you know, talking about somebody, you know, if they show me an ID, or if they, you know, show me, you know, a certain type of vehicle that I would recognize, or, you know, or I can feel, sometimes I can feel, I know this sounds weird, but sometimes I can feel their branch, like, of service. So I'm like, and it's kind of interesting because I was doing another gallery in a town across the state, and there was a big bodybuilder guy, and he was actually, this is funny because he was from New York, and he had this super thick accent, and he came in and he was just like, you know, how you doing? And he kind of sat down with his girlfriend.
I find that very offensive, Dean.
Yeah, well, that's what he said. He was like, Joey Tribbiani, how you doing?
Oh, I get it. You sound just
So,
like you look.
anyways, everybody from the Midwest thinks that, and then I'm sure everybody from the East Coast thinks everybody in the Midwest goes, oh yeah, sure, you betcha. So, but
yeah,
pretty
here's the
much.
thing. I think everybody in North Dakota knows the Italian voice, and they just it's fun to do. First of all, it's fun to just do that. It's fun.
Right,
Hey,
yeah,
guy
yeah.
over here, guy, forget about it. Everybody loves to do that.
Right.
But I not to be offensive, because Joey just messaged me this, and Joe just said that people in Rhode Island don't usually pretend to be people from North Dakota.
I love it. That's a good one. I love that one.
Joey, it's your joke.
They don't even pretend it. They just what the hell. That's a good one. I love it.
All right, I'm sorry for Joey's.
No, that was good. I love it. We got to have the banter. But so yeah, he came in, big guy came in, and right away, right off the bat, I was like, it was a gentleman. He was that I was connecting to that in spirit, and I said he is super proud of the fact that he was, he served in the Marine Corps. And I said he was a flying leatherneck, like no shit. He was in your face type attitude, like he was always like, and that's how he was. He was very loud and always in your face. And the big guy that was he was right up front, and he goes, "Yo, that's my uncle." And whatever his name, I'm not going to say his name was Vinny, but whatever his, his uncle, yeah, probably. Tony. And it was interesting because, his uncle was bringing forward all these messages, and then all of a sudden his uncle leaves, and all these firemen come rushing in, and they put all their hands. They stand in line and all put their hands on each other's back, and then one puts his hand on his back. And I said, I don't understand this. Because I didn't know he was from New York up until this point. And I said, I don't understand this. Your uncle left, and all these firemen come in, and and I told them how they were standing, and they were trying to push you out the door. And he started tearing up. This big guy started tearing up, and he goes, so you can probably tell from my accent, I'm not from North Dakota. And he goes, originally, I lived in New York. He said, I'm a lifelong resident of New York. And he goes, during 9/11, he goes, I was actually serving as a firefighter. And he goes, I lost a lot of brothers that day. And he said, they were always pushing me, in a sense, out the door. And he said, talking about that was one of the reasons that he was alive. And I was like, whoa, holy shit. And I was like, wow. Well, and and then I delivered their message about still having his back, and, knowing that, that they love him and all that great stuff. And I don't think there was a dry eye in the place. And it was just I was standing there just whoa. And, he came up later. What's that?
How do you deal with this, Dean? How do you take this home? How do you?
I don't take it home. I compartmentalize the best I can. If you think of the best way I can describe it, Mike, is you think of an EMT, right? And if you roll up on a scene, if you're overwhelmed with what's going on, you're not going to be effective as a paramedic or EMT, whatever you do, right? Mm-hmm. And so I try to focus squarely on what I'm doing. There are moments in readings where it's so surreal that it'll come back and whoa, because I'm human, and a dad and, a husband. So you get these moments that just give you goosebumps, or you get emotional, and it's holy shit. But it's just the way that it works with me is after the meeting, or after the event, it's I say it's just a poor analogy, but it's like a toilet. It gets all that information gets flushed, because you think of a medium carrying around years and years of hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of readings. Who wants that? That's right. Your stuff, not mine. And I'm only the in-between. I don't, yep. And so, I'm the vessel. I don't want to carry your stuff. And so even though I get to share your moment with you for, however long we're together, but that's it. and then the rest stays with you, and I'm out of it because that was never mine to begin with. So, so I let it go.
Joe, and your last question coming around, I'm going to ask you, you can give your last question, but also, would you be able to shake it off, you think, all this stuff repeatedly adding up, these stories?
I don't know if I can answer that honestly, because without having experienced that, I think to get that type of, just to experience someone, from beyond just coming to you with a message in general, I think for me, like, I don't know how I would handle that. So I don't know if I can answer you honestly, because
it was, so you won't be able to forget it.
Yeah, like I think it would be harder for me to let that go. But then again, if I got used to it and was able to work on it, because I remember, when Heather was really getting into that, she always used to talk about like putting everything into the box, and then when she wanted to really get in tune, she would then open the box.
Right.
And so like you have to work on it. I'm sure at some point, maybe I'd be able to do it, but without having experienced it, I feel like it would be really jarring to just have that happen, just in general overall.
Last question.
I got one.
Was there? This is going to be completely, not really paranormal related, but what in terms of being in the military, was there any quick, really interesting or funny story from your time that you spent overseas or just back home, especially in the Guard?
Yeah. So real quick story, because I always went back. Everybody asked if I knew I was a medium back when I was in the military. When we were in Afghanistan, we were on a night patrol, up armored vehicles, patrolling a route, and actually the whole entire patrol stopped. And I was wondering why the hell we stopped. And I tried to get somebody on the radio, and I was like, hey, what the hell is going on? And nobody was answering. And I heard very clearly right behind me was move the vehicles up another 500 meters. Now I got to paint a little picture for you. It's only me, the driver, and the gunner. That's it. 2 empty seats behind us. And very clearly I heard, move the vehicles up another 500 meters. And this went on for a little while. Like I couldn't get anybody on the radio, and kept on hearing this voice that was very insistent on doing this. And so I finally got out of the vehicle, and on foot, I sprinted up to the front vehicle, and here, which these guys were decided to take a piss break, which was not even part of our SOP. I don't know what got in their brain, but they did. And I was like, what are you guys doing? Like, this is a choke point. We need to move up another 500 meters. And about that time, we heard an audible clicking noise. And we still, to this day, we never did prove it, but still to this day, we still believe that it was a remote detonator trying to detonate an IED in that section of the road. And one of the things that we were carrying with us was an early Raytheon prototype of an IED. Kind of in a sense, it creates an electronic bubble barrier around all the vehicles. And it was a very, very early prototype. And we still believe that to this day, that's one of the reasons that we're still around. But I go back to that crazy, where did that voice come from? Was that my guides? Was that, somebody, loved one in spirit? And maybe that wasn't so funny, but in a sense of, I still go back, and that's, like more of a paranormal event.
Yeah.
And, in areas too, in the mountains of Afghanistan, when we were there, I'd always hear, I remember going back and hearing voices because in the area that we were at is because there was a lot of Russians killed in that area, where a lot of mountain OPs that we were in observation posts, for those not aware of what OPs are.
Afghanistan in the mountains, wasn't there the claim that they're like a 13 to 15 foot redheaded guy with long hair and a red beard came out and he took a spear through one of the soldiers and killed him? I'm not joking about this.
So,
they had to shoot him down, and then 2 helicopters came. One took the giant away, and one
supposedly.
That
was nothing
that happened.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that personally. I think I read about the same story about special forces units going out and killing this giant. And, I guess it's more of an alleged story, because will they ever like prove it, or you will never get that, other than maybe somebody from one of the teams coming forward.
Yeah, they have.
How
They've had a guy come
Oh,
forward.
they have.
but
Okay.
It's like
Okay.
yeah, you can't prove it. Like, in other words,
Right.
the body was taken away.
Well,
It
sure.
it growled like a man, but not like a man. It was about 13 feet, red-headed, red beard, unkept, but the spear that it threw looked like what we would consider, like, I don't know what you guys know, Dungeons and Dragons. What's next? It would have a bigger. It was like this round. Like, he was a monster of a person. So
Javelin?
yeah, it's like a javelin. More like a javelin. That's a pretty good joke. I'll give you that. Javelin. What else
Sure.
do you do? Buddy didn't even say frisbee. That's what I did hear about that, though. Buddy, your last question, because I know you've been patiently waiting.
Oh my God! Yeah, I have a million questions, but I have one in particular, Dean. As a medium, so myself, I'm a paranormal investigator. And for years going on different investigations, my wife Heather would have experiences, and she would like hear particular voices, or she would we'd be doing a pendulum session. She would have the answer before, or she would give an answer to a question we would ask, and then there'd be an EVP that would validate what she was saying, which was absolutely mind blowing. But like Joe had said, she was able to in her mind, she had a box, and they all came out of this box. And when she was done, she would put a lid on the box. However, we go to places like her and I would go on vacations. We go on vacations to places like down south, and on our way back from the south, we'd stop at places like Antietam, Gettysburg, which have a tremendous amount of spiritual activity. She would she tasted blood in her mouth. She felt like her head, the back of her head was blowing up. She had such a migraine, she couldn't be on Little Round Top for more than 20 minutes without felt like she was having physical feelings of this, what people experienced almost 150 years prior. So my question to you is, somebody who's experiencing stuff like this, how can they shut it off?
Well, you can't. You can't shut it off. It's still there, but you can manage them. You can manage the symptoms in a sense, and try. But number one is becoming aware of that. Somebody like you're talking about your wife being so sensitive, as people call, sensitives, or people that are extremely intuitive or clairsentient, clear feelers that are go to these paranormal hotspots that there was so much death, they're feeling others' pain.
What they're looking for. She wanted to stay in the car, and I'm the history guy. I wanted to walk down Sunken Road, and she sat in the car, and she's like, I tasted blood. I saw I experienced this young man. He was in this place he didn't want to be in, and she had this whole experience in her head, and it matched somebody who might have been in the Confederate Army, who might have died at that. It's just when she wanted it or she didn't. It was sometimes so overwhelming that she couldn't shut it off.
Well, I think to talk about it, how somebody can manage that, or as you use the word shut it off, I don't think that you can really shut it off. That's my personal belief, because it's still there. But I think that you can manage how intense it gets. And number one, learning to recognize when you start feeling that stuff starts coming on, and knowing how sensitive you are, how affected you get. So kind of respecting your own boundaries, saying, oh, I can't go all the way up there, otherwise I'll get sick, or energy, picking up on too much stuff. But also setting up you think filter barriers too, because kind of those, again, boundaries with spirit, because sometimes you have to go places or do things that are in areas that are very active or a lot of energy, right? And so it's how do you do that? And it's a process that's unique to each person. But I think it's through not only embracing your gifts and learning how to control them at a more finite level, and then also how to really set boundaries with that. Because say if you just have to go through the area, or even stay in the area for a while, can you protect yourself in a sense, energetically? Right. And so I think there's no one answer. And I know that that's not a definitive answer, but it's because everybody is unique. And if I was to say one size fits all in Dean's world, that's bullshit, because everybody's unique. and what works for me won't work for you, and what works what won't work for you works for Mike, and won't work for Joey or whatever. So you got to find your own mixture, your own recipe. And if I asked all four of us to make the same mixed drink, it's going to be a little bit different. Mike probably make it pretty strong, right? So, but you know what I'm saying? Everybody has their own recipe and what works for you. And so you're going to do your own little spin on it. So, yeah, it's, there's a lot of elements that go into it. Does that answer your question?
It does. And I'm sorry, just one really, I know I only had one last question, but really quickly, if you could answer this, I'm sorry, Mike. Do you feel like your abilities, you talked about your daughter earlier, feel like your abilities or the abilities of mediums are almost genetic in a sense?
Yes and no. I'm also a believer that we all have this ability, whether you believe that or not. It's my personal belief that we all have this ability within us. Some, it comes very naturally. And I always use the analogy of baseball, right? We've all probably at some level played baseball. It might've been elementary school, might've been high school. And just like mediumship, you can choose how to plug into it. Are you just going to stay at elementary level? You're going to take it to college level. Are you going to take it to the national leagues? What are you going to do with it? Maybe just a backyard pickup game, whatever that is, or maybe it's right in the streets, whatever. So the thing that I would share is that, it's really up to, the individual. But again, I go back to, Buddy, is my true personal belief is that it's all inside it. We all have the ability, but I would also agree that it tends to run very strongly in families that are like, say, the mom, or, we see typically, not always, but typically we see a lot of strong generational ties on the female side. Like grandma might have been a very gifted tea leaf reader, right? And then maybe mom was a very clairvoyant or whatever, right? And then all of a sudden sister, is born, and all of a sudden she's talking to dead people. And so it just runs. I found out that I had an aunt. I have a big family lineage in Canada, and because my dad was born in Canada. And actually, when I came out as a medium and he mentioned that to my aunt, she said, "Oh, just like Aunt so-and-so." And he goes, "What?" And she goes, "Don't you remember? She used to read tea leaves." And I never knew really hardly any of my dad's family other than a couple of his sisters. And so it was kind of interesting. And so I had a little chuckle. I was like, "Oh, that's kind of funny." Find out one of my aunts used to read tea leaves back in the day. So
that's cool.
So, yeah.
So Dean, first of all, the analogy would be better with music, I think, than baseball, because let me put it to you this way.
Okay.
Joey played Little League, right? You said if you want to play higher, you can play higher. Joey can't hit a curveball. That's just the truth. You ever see Joey can't catch a ground ball? It was awful thing. But my point is, like, something you just can't become, right? Some things are different though, like where music, things that are subjective, where you kind of go your own way, go on your own route, make it on your own without having the abilities they need. Like,
sure,
Buddy's not running the 4.4. Not happening. I'm not running a 5.4. Not happening.
No.
My point is, but like music, I'll make music with you. I can sit and jam and do stuff. You feed off different people. It's not the same results. You're not looking for a victory. You're looking for something like. Does that make more sense? My analogy using music than baseball, because again,
you certainly can.
Joey can't hit a curveball. Joe, any last words before I say that about curveballs?
I might protest this whole stream after that, but no, I just want to say thanks for the conversation, Dean. As always, I always like to just kind of thank the person for taking the time out and talking to us, and it's nice to hear someone who, I've kind of gone through this myself. I'm not a medium. I've been involved in the paranormal for about 10 plus years, and I've been in the Guard for 5.5. And I have told some people in the Guard about, what I do as a hobby, and you do get that like, oh, yeah, all right, well, that's cool. And then they walk away, and some people are like, oh, that's super interesting. So it's cool to hear somebody else who kind of has a similar kind of experience in that regard. And again, thank you for the conversation. Thank you for your service.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for your service as well.
Buddy?
I didn't serve a day in the Guard, although when I was 18, I tried to enlist. I unfortunately have physical attributes that, but I celebrate
take it
everything you guys do. Thank you so much. Next week, join us live at 7:05 as we welcome author, historian Daniel Duke. Daniel Duke is the second great-grandson of Jesse James, and he wrote a book called Jesse James and the Lost Templar Treasure, the whole Southern post-Civil War treasure thing. He does the conspiracies wrapped around that. So join us for an interesting, I'm sure it will be an interesting historical / conspiracy show next Sunday.
I thought that was Indiana Jones. You lost me on that one. Dean, is there anything you'd like to say before we wrap up? Anything you'd like to plug or get people to come see?
Hey, if anybody wants, they can check me out at my website at militarymedium.com, or I'm just about on every social media platform. You just look up the Military Medium or Psychic Medium Dean McMurray, and I'll pop up. So you see my ugly mug on there, and you can check me out.
Dean, no offense, we know ugly mugs. You, sir, have no ugly mug. But
at least compared to the 3 guys on this show.
Yes, exactly. And again, we have a small testing group. I'd like to thank you once again for putting up with our tomfoolery. I appreciate it. It's always good to have conversations and find out more about people. You're obviously one of those people that you need 2 shows to really get to kind of know and get to know better. So maybe we can do this again down the line. I would love to get into more of the stories of the actual spooky stuff that I always try to avoid when I first talk to somebody, because I kind of like to feel it out and see how I'm going. So thank you so much, and we appreciate it. We have a full week of shows this week. Joey, if you're free tomorrow, I'm doing Bar Fangul 805, open talk, paranormal, wrestling, whatever we want to talk about, we can do. Tuesday night, we have It's Legit Metaphysical World at 8:05. Wednesday night, we have Legit Paranormal News at 8:05. Thursday night is Legit Paranormal Clips. Friday night at 9:05 is our Cryptids Bigfoot show. Saturday night, we sleep. Sunday night, we watch your New York Football Giants travel to the armpit of the United States, Philadelphia, to take the Eagles and smash them. God, if you're listening, I just want to beat the Eagles. Thank you, God. See, that's the problem. I waste all my time with God on sports. So for Dean McMurray, the military medium, for Joey Paranormal, for Buddy Money, there it is, me, Mike Liberty King, Mike L. This is Legit Paranormal, brought to you by LegitPodcast.com. Remember, you can watch all of our shows live on our website at LegitPodcast.com. And if you're in the Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Connecticut area, and you're looking for medicinal marijuana made into edible treats, made by somebody that's a caregiver who's going to make sure they don't give you too much, too little, to whatever, they're going to actually talk to you like it's supposed to be done, check out highharvest.net, www.highharvest.net. We will see you again soon. We're on tomorrow night. Stay tuned. We got more going.